You're watching Oregon's News at 10 on Oregon's Fox.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Claire Brennan. Here on Oregon's News, we're keeping an eye on some of the most important races in the state. Now that the polls have closed, officials are working hard to process your ballots and make sure your vote gets counted. The Lane County Elections Office is still live streaming the counting process on YouTube to ensure transparency. And turning to weather, despite recent rainfall, wind, and chilly temperatures, many leaves are continuing to put on a show across western Oregon. Skies continue to clear in coming days. That will help drop temperatures at or below freezing for the next week or so. Chief Meteorologist Josh Cozart is in the Weather Center with a closer look at the chilly temperatures. Josh.
Today, we were on a chillier note, as many of us sat well below the average. We should be hanging out towards the low 40s, but we managed to fall to the mid 30s, and even colder air is on its way. Here's a look at those early morning lows, falling back to 35 for Eugene, Springfield, 37 for North Bend and Coos Bay, as our daytime high temperatures didn't do much warming at all, only into the upper to mid 40s, low 50s for Corvallis and places like Newport and the South Coast. As our skies are slowly starting to clear with the decreasing cloud coverage, it allows all that heat we built up in the day to escape back out into the atmosphere. And after seeing some snow flurries over the high terrain, that too is starting to come to an end, and the National Weather Service canceling the winter weather advisories back at the top of the hour. Tonight, our lows are expecting to fall back into the low to mid 30s, and we're expecting to see those freezing conditions last through the remainder of the week, into the weekend, and into next week. We'll discuss where our daytime highs are heading in just a few minutes. Claire.
We'll start out our election coverage by checking in on the race to be Oregon's next governor. Right now, Tina Kotek is in the lead with 46% of the vote, followed by Christine Drazen. This is the first year that ballots can be postmarked on Election Day rather than arriving at the election office today. So if the race remains close enough, we may not have a winner this evening. And one of the key races in the battle for Congress is for Oregon's 4th Congressional District, after Congressman Peter DeFazio announced his retirement. Taking a look at the current results, Republican candidate Alex Skarlatos is making his second run at the position. Meanwhile, Oregon Labor Commissioner Val Hoyle is the Democratic candidate. She declared victory just over an hour after the polls closed. She celebrated with her campaign and says she's very excited to represent our community in Washington.
I'm incredibly honored to have been chosen by the voters of the 4th Congressional District to represent them in Congress, and it's because they know that I've delivered before, delivered for working families, delivered for jobs, delivered in rural and urban parts of the district, and I'm excited to go to Washington, D.C. and work with anyone that wants to get things done.
The Associated Press has not confirmed her victory, although it's looking more and more likely here. Turning to the race for U.S. Senate, Senator Ron Wyden is facing challengers Republican Jo Rae Perkins, Pacific Green Party candidate Dan Poilievre, and progressive candidate Chris Henry. Right now, Wyden is winning with 55% of the vote. Senator Wyden was first elected in 1996 and is seeking his 5th full term. Jo Rae Perkins unsuccessfully ran against Senator Jeff Merkley in 2020. Checking in on the 4 statewide measures on the ballot. Measure 111 would amend the Oregon Constitution, requiring the state to ensure affordable health care access balanced against other needs, and right now the measure is not passing. Meanwhile, Measure 112 would also change the state constitution, removing the language that allows slavery and involuntary servitude as punishment for crime. Right now, the measure is passing with 54% of the vote. Measure 113 has to do with our state lawmakers. Under 113, if they have 10 unexcused absences from floor sessions, they'd be disqualified from holding the next term of office. Right now, the measure is passing with 68% of the vote. And finally, there's 114, a sweeping gun control measure. It would require a permit to acquire guns. State police would have a firearm database, and certain types of ammunition magazines would be banned. Right now, that measure is passing with 51% of the vote. Let's look at the race for the open seat on the Lane County Board of Commissioners. This is the seat currently held by Jay Bozovich. Right now, Ryan Saniga is ahead with 54% of the vote. We caught up with both candidates this evening, asking them what motivated them to run.
I'm a third-generation Oregonian. I've lived in West Lane County for 40-something years now, and I can't imagine living anywhere else. So I wanted to throw my hat in the ring and see if I could help get Lane County back to being business friendly. A lot of the people leaving are small businesses.
I'm motivated because my son just graduated high school and he has a future that he needs to be living in. And I want that future to be positive, and I want there to be a great quality of life. And I want his needs to be met. I want all of our needs to be met. So I want us to have clean air and clean water and safe homes and good economic opportunities.
And in Springfield, voters are deciding whether or not to renew a 5-year levy for Springfield's police and jail operations. The current one is set to expire in June of 2023. Right now, the levy is passing with 67% of the vote. We caught up with Sean Gordon earlier this evening.
The early results look really great. I'm really grateful to the people of Springfield to continue to support public safety in this community. It's clear in the early results that there's a strong support for this levy and a strong support for the level of public safety that we currently have.
And finally, there's the street repair bond in the city of Eugene. That's meant for street repair, walking, and biking projects. And right now, it is passing with 65% of the vote. Top elections officials in several states have a message for voters tonight. Patience is key, especially in Oregon, where ballots can now be mailed on Election Day. The National Association of Secretaries of State said in a statement that election night results are always unofficial, and it will likely take days or weeks for final results, especially with races that are neck and neck. Officials remind Americans the process of counting millions of ballots takes a while, and that's normal. They assure every eligible vote will be counted as cast.
Cold, freezing temperatures are taking aim at Western Oregon once again, with very little relief from the cold during the daytime hours. We'll discuss where temperatures are heading towards the weekend and when the rain returns next on Oregon's News at 10. Clouds are starting to increase in places like Jacksonville, Florida, as the Sunshine State prepares for its second tropical system within just a little over a month's time. You'll remember back at the end of September, we saw Hurricane Ian move in on the west shoreline. Now it's the east shoreline's turn to get in as Tropical Storm Nicole currently develops just to the east of the state over the Atlantic Ocean. Right now, sustained wind speeds are right at about 70 miles per hour as it's tracking to the west-southwest at about 11 11 miles per hour, still under tropical storm category, but as it moves through the next 24 to 48 hours, expecting to strengthen to a Category 1 storm as it pushes its way on shore close to the Miami area. That's where wind speeds could be sustained at about 60 miles per hour, and widespread heavy rain will continue to batter much of the southeast. Closer to home, though, we're dealing with our own winter-like weather with a glorious sunset there over the Cascades, or over the hills of the coastal range, I should say, with Fern Ridge Reservoir there off in the distance, as our clouds are slowly starting to break free this evening after we picked up on just a few snow flurries over places like Highway 138 and the high terrain of the Crater Lake area. Now, as far as the rainfall totals go today, slightly less than what we experienced yesterday, especially further to the north into the Willamette Valley. 0% or 0 inches, I should say, of rain seen today. But as far as Coos and Douglas County go, just a couple of 100ths of an inch. So to break that down for the month of November, we're seeing a surplus in the wet weather for the Eugene-Springfield area. So much so that we've seen 3.5 inches more than what's typical for this first week of November, and that's slowly starting to close the deficit for the year at about 3.25 inches. As our latest low pressure system and our rainmaker continues to track its way off to the east, high pressure replaces it. That's going to draw in some drier, colder air from the northwest of British Columbia, so that's where those cool early morning lows are going to be found, and it's going to be stopping any new weather systems from tracking their way off to the east. So we'll put a bit of a pause as far as our rain accumulation goes over the next 48 hours, and the snowfall really starting to wind down, might pick up an extra 0.8 of an inch for the Crater Lake area. As our snow elevation level dips down to just about 2,000 feet, we're expecting to see no wet weather here for the next week or so as morning fog does develop for those valley locations. Sunshine by the afternoon, and that sunshine not necessarily warming up our temperatures before the next cloud deck moves in for Thursday afternoon. Early morning lows falling back into the freezing zone, low 30s. Daytime highs not much better, low 50s, but warmer than what we saw today. And our next chance for the wet weather, that returns come Friday. That's Veterans Day, and even at that, a slim chance to see the wet weather, as it's going to be a chilly Ducks and Beavers game on Saturday. Coos Bay also seeing those temperatures riding out into the mid-50s, with the Umpqua Valley falling to the low 50s here for the next several days. Again, the next chance of rain, that's going to be on Friday, but some of us were able to catch brief views of the Beaver Blood Moon eclipse early this morning. I took that photo at about 3 o'clock or so, and then the clouds moved right back in and started to rain.
Okay, so it looks like you got it just right at the perfect moment.
Right at the nick of time.
Well, that's amazing. Great job, Josh. And still to come on Oregon's News, an animal shelter is in urgent need of help, how you can foster a cat or adopt a pet in need from Saving Grace Pet Adoption Center.
You're watching Oregon's News at 10 on Oregon's Fox.
Welcome back. The Saving Grace Pet Adoption Center in Roseburg is issuing an urgent plea for foster homes. This need is so urgent they've waived the adoption fee for cats. All you have to do is come by before the 12th. All cats and kittens will be spayed, neutered, vaccinated, and microchipped, and they'll be available for adoption on a donation basis. Officials say they're at maximum capacity for both cats and dogs, despite hoping to make room for 80 more cats in the next few weeks. In order to make room for more, finding loving homes for the ones they have now is the big goal.
As far as donations, any amount helps. And cat food, we definitely need Kirkland brand maintenance food, which is a purple bag of food. We like to feed that consistently to our cats to avoid any kind of stomach upsets. And then we also really need non-seafood flavored pate, which I know sounds kind of specific, but again, it helps our kittens avoid tummy upsets.
Graham says they're looking for loving homes for dogs as well. Saving Grace is also in need of dog and cat food for shelter pets and the food bank. The World Athletics Championships have won 2 awards for tourism. Oregon 22 and the Worlds received the Mid-Market Champions Economic Impact in Sports Tourism Award from Sports Destination Management. The event also won the Best Professional Event Award from Sports Travel Magazine. The estimated economic gain for Eugene and Springfield during the Worlds exceeded $50 million. Travel Oregon, the U of O, and Travel Lane County were all recognized for their contributions to the event. And as temperatures start to drop, cities across the area are opening the doors to warming centers for the homeless. In Eugene, St. Vincent de Paul is announcing an early start to the Egan Warming Center season. That begins today and could be extended if the current cold weather holds. There are 3 sites active in our area which are accessible and allow pets. The Wheeler Pavilion at Lane Event Center opens at 7 p.m., the Springfield Memorial Building opens at 6:30 p.m., and a youth site for those 18 and under at First United Methodist Church opens at 6 p.m. The shelters are looking for more volunteers for this season. Find out how you can help by going to eganwarmingcenters.org. And LTD will be offering free rides to the shelters on nights when the temperatures dip below 32 degrees. And still to come on Oregon's News, we're keeping an eye on Tropical Storm Nicole in Florida, as experts say it could increase to a Category 1 hurricane as early as Wednesday. Thanks for sticking with us. Floridians are bracing for a rare November hurricane. Tropical storm Nicole could strengthen to a Category 1 hurricane by tomorrow. It's expected to slam Florida's east coast Thursday morning. This latest system coming less than 2 months after Hurricane Ian pummeled parts of western and central Florida. The cleanup still ongoing from that storm. Jen Sullivan looks at the projected storm's path and how Florida's bracing for another storm's wrath.
Winds are picking up in Florida as the Sunshine State braces for what could become a Category 1 hurricane. Tropical storm Nicole is gaining strength and is expected to make landfall north of West Palm Beach early Thursday morning, bringing torrential rain and sustained winds of at least 74 miles per hour.
This could lead to flooding over roadways, rendering them impassable.
The National Hurricane Center issuing a storm surge watch for much of Florida's east coast and parts of Georgia and South Carolina. And as Floridians hunker down for a wet and windy week, long lines at the gas pumps and grocery stores packed with shoppers as residents frantically fill up on supplies.
They're out of water, out of the cased water.
This latest system comes as many communities are still reeling from Hurricane Ian, which slammed into Florida's west coast less than 2 months ago as a Category 4 hurricane. The powerful storm killing at least 130 people in Florida and decimating several neighborhoods along the west coast and central part of the state. Residents are still trying to pick up the pieces, and now they're bracing for another storm. I'm Jen Sullivan reporting.
Thank you, Jen. And next on Oregon's News at 10, we may have to wait days or weeks for official election results, but People magazine has already decided upon one very important title this year. That's the sexiest man alive. Finally tonight, and this year's sexiest man alive, besides Josh Cozart, is, drumroll please, actor Chris Evans. People magazine made the announcement on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert Monday night. Colbert said the former Captain America is a, quote, incandescent supernova of hotness. And former sexiest man alive, Dwayne Johnson, congratulated Evans on that coveted title. Johnson then joked around saying, quote, I'm sexiest man alive in perpetuity, which means for life. And then in his acceptance speech, so to speak, Evans urged Americans to, quote, go vote. Evans took the sexiest man crown from fellow Marvel alum Paul Rudd. You know, there's a lot of Chris's in Hollywood, and I actually thought that Chris Pine and Chris Evans were the same person. until embarrassingly recently.
All right. Well, once this article came out, you're like, oh,
Yeah,
there's a little bit
this
of
helps
difference.
me differentiate. I think for me personally, my sexiest Chris in Hollywood is Chris Pine.
Okay. Well,
His
People
eyebrows.
Magazine keeps trying to get in contact with me, but we just
Yeah,
can't
I know.
connect.
I mean, you're a little bit above them, but maybe next year. That's all for tonight. Thank you so much. We'll see you back here tomorrow.